Hi, everybody. It's Judy and Stacey from Saltovation. We're here today to talk to you about Nexus, which is a pretty lofty topic, but we're going to give you some things to think about with respect to Nexus and what that means from a state and local tax perspective. And with that, I'm just going to throw it to Judy and say, okay, what do you think taxpayers need to know about Nexus, and what is Nexus, and what do we need to know?
Well, it's not a hair product. It's got only one X. Remember that? We used to put that on slides all the time because people didn't understand the concepts. It's kind of a legal term. So it's kind of a, what is Nexus? It's a hair shampoo. Anyway, and it morphed over to law based on the state's ability and limitations by our U.S. Constitution to tax an out-of-state entity or person, for that matter. So, in order for them to assert their tax status over you when you're not within their boundaries, there was ways that we looked at things, and then there was ways we sliced and diced the American income tax pie to attribute it to each state. So it was based typically on traditional presence, right? People payroll, inventory, assets, office space, locations, real estate. So physical presence was the historic law. And then, that morphed right over time where that's been what, golly, is that 1940s that physical presence is kind of the thing? And then the apportionment, and then we had Public Law 6272, which is a whole different one. We can talk about it another time, but it's something to think about when you sell a good and not a service. But then we morphed to this whole thing where people pop in and they pop out. And we had some de minimis arguments like, well, I'm only there one day, or I'm only there 2 days, or I'm going out for a trade show. So this physical presence, yes, I visited the state. I sat there for one day. I did make a market. I did sell to somebody. There were some laws put in place by some of the states to say, we're cool with trade shows. You can come and have a trade show and you don't have an income tax filing in our state. So there are a few states that have said that physical presence, that popcorn trade show physical presence isn't enough. And there are some states that limit the amount of days in state when you pop in, you pop out, to say like 11. So there's just a few states that say, we're cool if you're less than this amount of days. And I guess I would say to you as a business, like, good luck measuring that. Like, that's the first and foremost priority, to say, how many times did so-and-so go to Indiana? Like, that is the last thing any business really cares about tracing, but unfortunately it's something that people need to be thinking about. And then we morph to this affiliate nexus, like you own an entity and it's making a market on your behalf, and because it's making a market, you guys are together and those attributes play off each other. And then we had agency nexus, which is I hire a third party to make a market, be my distributor, and they create nexus for me because they're making a market for me and other people, and they're closing contracts or whatever is being negotiated because it makes it easier for me. And that could be an issue for Nexus. And then we had click-through Nexus, and that was crazy. Like, you pay somebody, a blogger or somebody like that, a percentage of every sale that gets consummated when they go from your blog to the website to interact. And somehow they know that, but we all know that now. Cookies are real and they are following you, and they are not something to be eaten. And then, of course, we ended up with Wayfair Stay. So, I mean, you've been doing this 25 years. I've been doing this 26. We always joke we're like a year apart. What do you think, based on your living in this world, and explain to your clients, like, you have a duty, you don't have a duty, and they're all leading with Wayfair. What do you think about that morphing to that?
Well, I think it also, since I have a lot of income tax background, I guess from a state income tax perspective, those kind of economic nexus rules have been in place for years. And so I'm kind of not surprised that sales tax is finally, kind of caught up. It's taken them a long time, because if you think about it, and I think this can be surprising to some taxpayers, that the MTC, the Multi-State Tax Commission, had put those factor presence rules in place in 2002. And what that meant was that, their kind of baseline is $500,000 of sales into a state, $50,000 of payroll, $50,000 of property, or if you're, overall property, payroll, and sales are 25% or more of the total, then that would be nexus creating in a jurisdiction. Now, that's the MTC's rule, and not every state has to follow it. And as we know, now not every state has, that bright line economic nexus rule for income tax. But I think it just goes to show, right, that those rules were put in place in 2002. And then we've seen over time in the income tax space where, like the Toys R Us case, the Jeffrey case, that was back in the 90s, where
Yeah.
that started kind of this opening up the floodgates of, if you're just kind of deriving income in our jurisdiction, then that's enough to create Nexus. And so I guess, again, in the state and local tax world, things move slow. But I guess I'm not really surprised that now, we've morphed in the sales tax space to Wayfair, and now we have economic nexus rules that we have to layer in. Because from an income tax perspective, we've always had to do that, really, for a very long time. Not always,
Right.
for a long time. But it's just a lot more complexity. And I guess it just goes to show, right, that the states are becoming more and more creative as to how they're going to get revenue. And and rightly so, because of the way our economy is shifting and has shifted over time. And it remains to be seen whether we see even more of that shift or change in state laws with, like the digital advertising that we've seen with Maryland, for example, and, some of the other states that have had those digital advertising tax proposals. I mean, I think it just goes to show, right, that the states they're starting to, get a little bit more savvy and smart to the ways that they can get revenue, and coming on board with how, we as a, society do business and how we get information and are taking all of that in, and it affects taxes.
Right. And I was just going to end with states house the citizens that buy your goods, and their view is they maintain the roads and the police and the court system and all the infrastructure so you can get your good to their constituent, which lives in their state. And so they are entitled to tax them. And so they really feel that it's their right. And so it's not such a simple thing as I ship it in or drone it in or deliver it on FedEx, right? And I didn't have anything to do with it once it left my dock, or once I send on, that's not true. You had a lot to do with it. Even if you didn't do it in state, you had a lot of things that supported you to get your service to the customer or your product that the state paid for, and they need to be reimbursed for the infrastructure costs and also with the maintenance of that infrastructure. So.
Right. And I think that's a good reminder, right? Because I think we get a lot of questions about, like, well, why do they think they can tax us?
Yeah.
That's a good reminder to say, okay, these are the reasons why.
And I think if you could send an invoice and get something to a customer out of your own state or out of your own country, why can't you tax them? Right? I mean, it doesn't seem like it's that hard to do if you just sat down and figured it out. But of course, a lot of people refuse to do that. And that's why we exist, because we're here to figure out that puzzle of sales tax and state taxes for all our clients.
All right. And with that, if anybody has additional questions or wants more information, reach out to us at saltovation.com. Thanks, everybody.